Welcome to the sketchbook session today. We're finally going to finish off this monstrous guy, and I'm going to be talking about the purpose of sketchbooks and why this is not it. Greetings, my name is Zach. I'm an artist and an art teacher. If you are enjoying these sessions, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps a ton. Alright, so let's take a look at this guy. I'm finally starting with the eyes, which is exciting. I love working on eyes. They seem to find their way into almost every piece of artwork I do, and it's just fun. Eyes, something about them is intriguing. It's what allows us to see into the soul or the being of whatever it is. There's a reason why eye contact is so important to us as humans, and it's one of those things that allows us to connect with another being. When a baby starts looking you in the eye for the first time and maintaining that contact, it's such a special moment. And so I've recaptured that here in this creepy, semi-homogeneous structure of a creature. Its eyes allow us to see inside of it to some degree. And for some reason, the angle of the mouth, where it kind of looks like a smile and all these creepy eyes, I don't know about you, but when I look at this, I tend to focus on one or two eyes at a time, and they kind of convey some of the mood. So if I look at the eye that's facing directly forward, it seems pretty benign. There's not a lot of emotion there. But the two eyes to the right of it, the one kind of looks a little grumpy, the other looks like it's looking down and it's curious. Some of them are staring straight at us, breaking that fourth wall. A lot is communicated through eyes, and eyes make life interesting. You may notice as well I'm bouncing back and forth between my black Microns and a white gel pen, both of which dry at different rates, and so I have a tendency to jump back and forth. I also just kind of work this way in general. I have a tendency not to spend a lot of time on a specific thing, and I enjoy the process of jumping back and forth. And that kind of takes me to what I wanted to talk about today, which is sketchbooks in general, and how what I'm doing here isn't necessarily what a sketchbook is built for. Now, the sketchbook is this icon of artists, and to say that it is built for something or is not built for something is slightly controversial and is also slightly not true in and of its very nature. A sketchbook is whatever you want it to be. But a sketchbook does have some uses which I would venture to say are less debatable. A sketchbook in and of itself is a cheap medium for you to take here and there to have something to work on constantly. I know a lot of people have iPads or laptops where they can work on their digital art on the go, but historically, a sketchbook gives you the ability to work on things wherever you are. And still, for a lot of students who probably aren't allowed to carry those kinds of things around during their school day, a sketchbook allows you to do that. What you're looking at right here is going to be a complete drawing. It's going to be an illustration, not really a sketch or a drawing in and of itself. And a sketchbook has that name for a reason. It is for sketches. Sketches are quick drawings. They're usually for the purpose of studying or figuring something out or playing. And that's really where a sketchbook is best utilized. Now, I have so many sketchbooks that this one in particular is primarily for illustrations. This is my mixed media sketchbook. I can use watercolor in it, I can use inks, I can use these brush pens, but I have several sketchbooks which are only for crappy little drawings, quick drawings, learning how to draw birds or people. They're not fun sketchbooks to look through. In the social media age, there's been a push toward having the sketchbook be a finished product, a piece that can be shown to the world, and frankly, I think it's a bad thing. Sketchbooks like the one I'm working on right now are kind of that, but the only reason I feel okay doing that is that I have so many going. If I had to really come down to it right now, I think I have a watercolor sketchbook. I have two watercolor sketchbooks. I have a Bristol sketchbook, which is great for pen and ink and stuff, and actually what I'll be replacing this one with when I finish it. I have a standard sketchbook, which is just for my crappy drawings. I have an ink sketchbook, which is just for Inktober and things like that. And then I have a Moleskine sketchbook, which I started in, and then decided I need to finish other sketchbooks first. I'm really eager to get down to having only probably 3 sketchbooks at a time. One for finished illustrations, one for specific media, and then one just to do whatever the heck I want with. And that's really the key, is I think that if you are going to treat your sketchbook like an illustration house, I would highly, highly recommend that you have another one that's just for crappy drawings. We need to have a space to draw whatever the heck we want whenever we want. And it's good if you can manage to convince yourself that it's okay to have illustrations in this sketchbook as well as crappy drawings. Because you have to have a space where it is safe for you to put together crappy things. And maybe you don't like the fact that I keep using the word crappy, but it's, I don't know, it's kind of a funny word. It's not really profane in any capacity, and it allows me to achieve the purpose of what I'm trying to mention. I don't want to go darker than that, and I also don't really want to go more serious than that. They are just sloppy, messy, not really high profile. You don't really want to show them to people. They're not special. But there might be nuggets of good in there, you know? And that's okay. A sketchbook needs to be messy, or at least you need to have the option to produce messy things in it. And so if you really feel compelled to have that sketchbook where everything looks perfect, that's fine, do that. But I would recommend you get a cheap sketchbook and maybe you just hide it. You don't tell anybody about it. And in that one, you work on whatever you want, whatever, you know, your brain or the muse tells you need to do in that moment. And if everything in it looks ugly, great. And if everything in it looks beautiful, great. Who cares? As long as you're filling it, as long as you're doing something in it, that's really what's important. So I'm curious, please share in the comments down below, how many sketchbooks do you have right now? I have way too many. I'm not proud of it. It's not a gloat or a flex in any way. It's mostly just like, it's mostly me just having an attention deficit in some capacity and bouncing back and forth between things all the time. We're finally moving into the home stretch now. You can see I have the whole sketchbook opened up. This is so that my hand is resting on a surface that is right next to the pages that I'm working on. When I had the whole sketchbook kind of folded back on itself as you would normally work, my hand was sitting about an inch below the surface of what I was drawing on, and it was really uncomfortable and difficult to make these subtle curves for the pupils and irises. This goes in that same train of thought as what I mentioned last time concerning moving your sketchbook around, putting it at different angles so that you can work on it in exactly the way that you want to or need to for that moment. Don't feel weird about it. There's no shame in having to rotate your canvas and change things so that it's a better, more helpful angle for you to work on. And so these drawings might not be what a sketchbook is built for, but again, that's kind of the point. These drawings are enjoyable, they're fun, I like doing them. And with all of the pressure and pushing towards being better and growing as an artist, whether this comes from within or without, having a place that you can just work on fun things is also relevant and beneficial. And I don't always enjoy the studying. I know that it's good for me. I know that spending time drawing the figure and working from reference on human bodies is good for me, and I want to be able to draw characters and things like that from memory, and so I know it's good and I know I need to do it, but it's not fun most of the time. And this kind of stuff is fun. If you take pieces of the not fun and pieces of the fun and put them together with each other, it's kind of like making a salad where if it was just greens, it would be really annoying and kind of lame. But if you put in some things that make it more tolerable, like in my case, fruit, nuts, cheese, stuff like that, it makes the salad enjoyable as opposed to just being tolerable. And so working on projects like this, where I'm just playing around and creating ugly monsters, it keeps me in the craft. I keep making things, I keep playing. But it also then gives me things to look up. It gives me things to pursue as far as my studying and my learning. And so it's an all-around win. If this is all that I put my time into as an artist, I don't think I'm advanced enough that that would be enough for me. But where I am right now, I can do this as about 30% or 50% of my artwork, and that's just fine. You'll notice in a lot of the other videos, especially the much more scripted videos, I often work on really detailed referential kinds of things. I've been working on Lord of the Rings stuff lately for some of the videos. I did the one with Gollum. I'm doing the one with the Balrog now, which is going to be a lot of fun and was really enjoyable. But those are the other side of the artwork that I work on. And then I've got the things that are in the middle where I do lots of drawing from imagination and I look up references whenever I need to. And maybe those 3 different aspects are what I work on. And I need a sketchbook for 2 of those, but the big projects often don't happen in sketchbooks, or they happen in my gigantic sketchbooks. But usually they happen on the computer, in a digital canvas, or they happen on a real canvas when I'm working on oil paintings and things like that. I do find it a little intriguing that it seems like there is a stigma against using reference when you're working digitally or in a sketchbook, which is silly. But then it feels like there's a stigma against using no reference when you're working on oil paintings and things like that. Most of the channels here on YouTube and most professionals that I've run into in my life when they're working on oil paintings, they're working from reference. Like, that's just kind of the assumption. This is what you do. Oh, you're an oil painter? Like, you must go out and, paint in plein air, or you must get really good photos, or whatever. The idea that someone would make a giant oil painting of a monster like I'm making right now is a little anathema. Now, it does happen, but it doesn't happen very frequently. And, that is a little agitating in a weird way, because most of us as artists, we have this desire to kind of buck the system and mess with things. And so if that's you, if you really have the desire to make ugly, beautiful creatures using oil paint or watercolor or some of the old school media that were often used for much classier ideas, then I would encourage you to go do that, because the world needs more cute, ugly monsters. I don't know about y'all, but I really like this stage of working on a drawing. Like, most of the tough decisions have been made, and now I just get to go around and fill in highlights and shadows, textures and colors. It's monotonous, but I kind of like the monotony. I feel like I've earned it at this point. I made a lot of difficult decisions with where the eyes are going to be placed, what direction they're going to be facing, and most of the stressful drawing has been done. This is just filling in areas. I think this is kind of similar to if you do any coloring. I used to take pages of manga when I was in high school, and I would color them because it was kind of fun. I would do that in Photoshop and early versions of it. And that was really enjoyable because all of the tough decisions had already been made. In that case, by someone else, but in this case, by me. And if you work on comics or anything that involves inking, there is kind of a nice stage once all of the lines are laid out where you just, oh, now I can just go in and fill in the things. And especially if you're working digitally, there's far less stress because you can just work underneath that layer. But I like this monotonous kind of work. Especially when the earlier stages are a little bit stressful, this feels earned. It feels like a relaxing time that I worked hard and achieved, and now I just get to reap the benefits of it and work on all these things. And as I fill in the eyes, as I fill in the shadows, as I fill in all these colors, things just become more fun and more interesting. I'm happy with how this guy's turned out so far. This isn't often the case, probably because my standards, like they are for so many of us artists, are far higher than they should be. And so I would encourage all of you, if you are one of those people who finishes your artwork and you look at it and you go, oh goodness, like this isn't as good as I wanted it to be, or I'm a failure. Try to actually listen to the people in your life who tell you things about your artwork being good, because I know most of us don't listen and most of us are really bad at taking advice from other people when it comes to that. Oh, this is interesting too. I decided to do this last eye blue. I'm not sure if blue was the right color, but I certainly like the fact that I chose one that's different. I think I should have done the one that's different facing straight at the viewer though, breaking that fourth wall, because it's even a little bit more intriguing in that capacity. But I think we could all benefit from taking the compliments and encouragement of other people a little bit more seriously, and taking the critiques, if they come, a little bit less seriously. Because most of the people that critique our artwork don't actually know what they're talking about. They just don't like some aspect of it, and that's fine. You're human, and not everybody's gonna like everything. We're on the final stretches now. But the other side of that's true as well, is take the compliments of people, the encouragement, oh, I like this, I think it's pretty. Take those seriously, because who's your audience when you're making artwork? Your audience is just the general public 90% of the time. You want people who aren't artists to understand it, to enjoy it, to love it. Whereas when people critique your artwork, you really should take the advice of artists a little bit more heavily. Now, a non-artist can tell you they don't like your drawing, they don't like your painting, and that's fine. They are totally allowed to do that. But if they try to give you advice on things that you ought to do with your painting or drawing, then I would disregard most of that advice, because they probably don't understand really what they're talking about in the trueness of the artistic venture. But we could all benefit from taking the compliments and encouragement a little bit more seriously. This final stage of the drawing is a lot of fun for me. It's just like the patching up and filling in earlier, but on this one, I'm just going through and adjusting shadows, adjusting highlights. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between my grays and blacks with my Micron, and then the white gel pen again, just making tiny little additions and highlights and stuff. The gel pen has really been fun. I think that white gouache would also do it, or white acrylic, but I kind of just didn't want to get out paintbrushes and work with that, so I picked up some gel pens before my last vacation to Ohio, and they've been a nice benefit. They're not perfect, they don't coat everything perfectly, but you can see as I'm going through some of the scleras, the whites of the eyes, and coating some of the orange lines from the just very early stages of this piece, they do a decent job of covering things up. They do a decent job of just applying a slight highlight or whiting things out a little bit. And maybe I go a little bit overboard, but like, you know, any of us do with a new tool, with a new toy. It's just common. It's gonna happen. But this is polishing off this thing, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. It was a fun experiment. Even though the things on the bottom really that I'm working on right now make me really uncomfortable. They're all warty and gross, like an infected pimple. But again, I mean, I guess that was kind of the goal, kind of the purpose of this drawing. Sometimes you just achieve the purpose well enough that it grosses yourself out a little bit. So there is that. Well, thanks for hanging out through this session, and as this was the third of these ugly creature drawings, I appreciate you guys watching, listening, commenting. So please share in the comments down below what your favorite piece of information or advice was from this session, and let me know what you're working on. And yeah, thanks for hanging in there. Have a good one, y'all. See you soon.